Religion always has a way of taking the least loving side when it comes to a controversial issue. Love between two people? If they're gay, some pastors will throw a hissy fit. Women seeking an abortion after being raped? Some Christians don't even think they should be allowed to have that option. And when it comes to people who choose to end their lives on their own terms, an idea known as euthanasia, Catholics in Canada are just adding insult to injury. Let me back up for a second. Last year, the Canadian Supreme Court ruled, unanimously, I might add, that patients with severe medical problems could ask their doctors to help end their lives, and they could do it legally. Physician-assisted death is now legal in Canada as long as you're 18, a Canadian resident, mentally competent, suffering from an incurable disease, and you have no chance of ever getting better. It's not a perfect law. For example, you can't choose death unless it's imminent. That means if you're suffering from some horrible chronic disability, you're just stuck. The law also allows doctors to say no to helping those patients, which is very convenient for doctors who oppose euthanasia for religious reasons. That became really relevant recently when an 87-year-old man wanted to end his life. But the problem was he was at a Catholic hospital and they refused to let him die on his own terms. He spent the last several hours of his life trying to transfer to a new hospital, but he had to wait 3 hours for an ambulance to arrive, and even then the ride was so bumpy that it made his pain even worse. He died, with the doctor's help, only after suffering for much longer than he wanted to. And he was lucky in some ways because there was a secular hospital nearby. I mean, what if it wasn't there? The Catholic doctors said they would not help him die, even when life was nothing but agony for this man. They would rather see people tortured than to help them die in peace. It's just barbaric. And then, to make matters worse, the Catholic bishops of Alberta and the Northwest Territories are now telling priests to refuse to conduct the funerals of patients who choose assisted suicide, even if those patients were Catholic. They don't want to act like ending your life is a good thing by rewarding you with a church-sanctioned funeral. It's not just cruel to refuse to do this one last thing for dying patients. You could argue that it's a threat. These priests are sending the message that if you take your own life, God will also punish you in the afterlife. As if things didn't suck already. Keep in mind that funerals aren't even for the deceased. They're for everybody else. These church leaders are punishing the victim's family, the people who may have just said goodbye to their loved one for one last time because of how that person died. Look, the Catholic Church has every right to set its own rules. What they're doing here is not illegal, but it is unethical. It's immoral. This is a religious institution that sees people in the worst times of their lives, when they're literally ready to pull the plug, and refuses to give them the closure they seek. How cruel can you be? When you're making medical decisions based on your religious beliefs, instead of doing what's best for patients, you shouldn't be working at a hospital. It's one thing to be pro-life. It's another to watch people who have no hope of getting better and tell them, you know what? We're going to let you keep suffering because that's what Jesus would want. We sometimes call out the Catholic Church for, their part in the pedophilia scandal. And we should. But church leaders will often tell you, that's just the problem with some rogue priests. That's not an institutional issue. This isn't a handful of Catholic priests making this decision. This is coming from the top down, and the doctors who work at these Catholic hospitals are obligated to do what the bishops tell them to do. It's an absolutely awful policy, and it just makes these already agonizing decisions that much worse for these patients. My name is Hemant Mehta, and I write at friendlyatheist.com. What do you want to see a video about? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll be sure to check it out. And don't forget to subscribe.